getting over that cancellation guilt. And it's an interesting word because you've used the word guilt there. And I recognize as practitioners, we're doing this to make a difference in the lives of others. And if we have to cancel that, what comes up for us?
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. And this is driven by a kind of a post in our Facebook group. But there was someone who had posted and they were saying that they'd had to cancel a client because they weren't well, the practitioner wasn't well, and they felt really bad about it. And the question really was, is this an unusual feeling? And the answer is, of course, it's not. It's probably, I would say, one of the most common emotional experiences that a therapist can have, especially if they're cancelling at short notice. And I think it's worth thinking about when you cancel, if it's for a very good reason, it's probably one of the best ethical decisions you can make. In codes of ethics, we have self-care as a priority. We prioritize self-care, and it's exactly for that reason. So we don't work beyond our health, and as it impacts onto clients, we, as therapists, we hold ourselves to really high standards of reliability and care. And we do worry. I think I might have cancelled twice in my career. It was one I had to take to supervision and chew over and worry about and lose sleepless nights about, because we are a caring profession after all.
We are. And it shows. You started off by saying that this is common. You've experienced it yourself. And even knowing about it and knowing about it being common doesn't maybe reduce the feelings that might come up with that within you at that moment. And it's not a fault. It's not that we're not being professional or we're not caring. In fact, the opposite is true. And then, so there's that guilt around, am I being unprofessional? And the short answer is no, you're actually being professional. It's emotional. You need to look at yourself emotionally. Am I mentally, emotionally, and health-wise able to be there for that client? Otherwise, are we really in service?
Yeah, I agree, Ken. And I think it's really good modelling as well, isn't it? We're modelling self-care and how to look after ourselves. And I think for a client to see that, it's okay if you're unwell not to turn up for something and spend some time caring for self, because therapy is all about helping clients look for ways of caring for themselves, of valuing self. And if we do that and show it, and in terms of how we cancel, I think that's important, the messaging and how we cancel. I think that it's in service of clients. If you've got a cold or you feel a bit under the weather, you might think to yourself, I'm going to be all right enough to maybe do an online session, and you can negotiate with your client, let's come and work online, and therefore you can work in your own home. But if you are really ill, if you've got the flu, or if you've had an accident or an ongoing health issue and it's flared up, then, I think it's really good practice to model what looking after yourself looks like. So I think it could be a good thing. But I also think that communicating clearly when cancelling is important. If you're feeling unwell and your session's 3 days away, it might be worth sitting down and thinking, is this going to get any worse? Because if it does, do I want to cancel on the last minute? And contacting the client, explaining what's happened. I've got a bout of the flu. I'm sure you don't want to sit in front of someone who's coughing and sneezing. Can we reschedule to next week? Not making it too much about you. We don't want the client worried about us, but enough to say that we're unwell and I'm sure that next week we'll be fine and reschedule, and offer alternative times or a structured next step. And I think for some clients, it's really important to reassure them that you'll be seeing them again, communicating with them warmly, offering another session, reassuring that you'll be there. And if you are in private practice and you are charging for your time, reassure them that, of course, you won't be charged for that session. And I think that kind of reduces the weight. I think it'll certainly reduce the weight on the client.
Yeah, and it's acting professionally within those circumstances. And when you speaking about the cancellation as soon as you possibly can, and usually the best place to do that is in your contract. And you would have in your contract, in the unlikely event that I needed to cancel a session with you, this is what would happen. And you'd put a sentence in that you would call them or you would contact them or how that would work, and that you would try to offer them another session as soon as possible, so that it's not the first time that the client is hearing about this if they've been through your contract with them. And I also want to say, I think you touched on a really important point there, Rory, is we can be blind to our own stuff. You only have to look to personal development and Johari's window to understand that we're so blind to so much of what goes on within us. If there's any supervisors listening to this, as a supervisor, you're looking out for this with your supervisees when you're meeting with them. If you're not a supervisor, you're going to supervision, it's a great place to take this kind of feeling or what comes up around it. And Rory, you've started to speak about what we can do about this. And in terms of you, the practitioner, is that compassionate talk. If something happens, you find yourself having to implement your plan for that emergency cancellation, every time that little nagging doubt, what have you done? How are you affecting this person's journey might come up, to change that negative self-talk into compassionate self-talk. I did this because I care, not because I don't. And I think just that reframing, I do this because I care, not because I don't, can really go a long way in quietening that critical voice that we still have. And then, of course, Rory, the cancellation is over. The client is at the next session. We're, of course, going to just recap on that and just check it out with the client, repair any fracture that may have occurred from that. And we can use it as a, how was that when I had to do that, and work with how it was for the clients. Again, not about how it was for us. It's not an opportunity for us to roll out of our excuses of why it is justified. It is an opportunity to find out how that was for the client and work with that, Rory.
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. And I think talking to clients about any kind of break you've had, be it a holiday, which we can contract for, or be it not foreseen break in therapy where you're ill, I think is really important, because it gives the client a chance to think about what it was like to just have that week or a fortnight without support. And it might be, here's the thing, Ken, it might be they actually say, I'm actually okay. I'm actually okay. And it wasn't that bad. And I think sometimes it's worth reminding we are responsible to the client, not for them.
That's it.
I think that's really important. We're not medical professionals who are prescribing medication or procedures. We are offering a space that people can explore what's going on for them.
I like that. And to sign off on this topic, I think it opens a beautiful door of compassion. We've spoken before about the frustrations of a client cancelling last minute, and how that might be for a student counsellor who's trying to get their hours in, or how that disrupts your practice, and what do we do about the fee? And we've focused on that aspect of it. Maybe looking at this topic opens a door of that compassion, that when our next client calls and says, you know what, sorry to give you this last minute notification, but I just can't make it, that our heart might be warmed and we go, yeah, you know what, I can empathize with that. I've been in a similar situation, and ease maybe a guilt or burden that they may feel in having to do that. Getting over cancellation guilt, we have a handout for you. This is created by Rory. It's a super duper handout, that's what we call them, and you can get it. It's free. It's got an introduction, talks about why we feel this way. It talks about reframing and practical ways to get over that feeling. And then it offers some next steps in how you might message that and consider that with your clients. So get that from the website.